Good morning, and happy
Turkey Day.
I'm eating. Happy Canadian Thanksgiving to everybody out there in Canada.
Yeah, I said on Twitter that I was jealous of all my Canadian followers since they get to eat turkey and stuffing 6 weeks before I do. And then I suggested all I needed to really do is marry a Canadian girl, and then I get 2 turkey days for the price of one.
That's what you got to do. You're close enough. You can work that out.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Right across the border there, man. You can definitely figure it out. I know. I have a friend who is a good friend who's up in Canada and lives down here, and just he's Canadian, but he married an American. So yeah, so it's all that's the way to do it. Then you get the 2 Thanksgivings. This is fun. It's funny. It always kind of cracks me up that it's Canadian. The Canadian Thanksgiving is so early. I
know it's weird.
It makes total sense though for their weather. I guess this is when you can have more fun up there in the outdoors than you can at the end of November, where it's pretty much just ridiculously cold, right?
So Russ, pre-show? Yeah,
pre-show. Just got done watching the documentary they did on Tom Seaver. Fox did it. Did a really nice job. Ed Burns was the narrator. I think he owns the documentary company, I believe, and he's a Met fan. He did a great job. It brings me back to, and of course, like I get choked up because like that's the guy who I first idolized in sports, but it made me think, back when he came in, he was like the hot prospect, and I was like 4 or 5 years old when they won the series. I stuck with him my whole life, and it made me think it's probably a big reason why I like covering prospects as much as I do, because I saw him totally succeed from the start to finish, right? And so, I thought I'd ask you guys, who is that player for you guys? But it was amazing because I got him. I saw him win a championship with my favorite team. I saw him win a 300 game at Yankee Stadium, and a lot of stuff in between.
Yeah,
and a lot of games. So there's a lot of memories tied into just that one player.
It's a really interesting question because there's different things there. There's the first guy. I think that you're kind of saying the first guy you recognized even before he was like a pro that he was going to be good, and then you saw him be good. Kind of like, right? Is that what you're saying, sir?
No, I'm just saying no, because I was too young for that. But I'm just saying the first guy you recognized when he came on the scene, even though he maybe never played a game, where you said, you know what, this guy's got the stuff.
Yeah. No, I got that. That's definitely for me. That's probably Pelle Lindbergh. I would say, definitely the guy for that. Just being and it was kind of. I mean, I grew up as Bernie Parent was definitely a guy for me as a kid, and no question about it. But I was really young for Bernie Parent. Pelle Lindbergh I was about 12 when he came in, and I was 12 and I got he was the first guy I saw play in the Olympics against the U.S. Olympic team in Sweden, and them say on television that guy was a Flyers draft pick. That was the first time. Wow, I never really knew who the Flyers draft picks were going to be or anything. That at 12.
Yeah.
So I'm like that. So when Pelle came to town, I fell in love with him watching him in the Olympics, and then I had a Lindbergh shirt before camp even opened. Like I was like the crazy like kid, like that the number 79 Carter Hart kid. Like I was that for Pelle Lindbergh.
Right. I
came up to him, and I was the first person he ever saw with a jersey and all that stuff, and he was just like blown away. And that was just a lot of it. Really just it hits you when the Lindbergh passing and all that stuff, but it's really just like one of these things that it's really kind of fun.
Documentary on it, you probably get a little teary eye at a time.
Oh, yeah, there's no two ways about it. There's never
emotion. There's a lot of emotions tied into it.
Well, I mean, Meltzer wrote a great book on Pelle Lindbergh, and I definitely that book gets me all the time. So yeah.
Well, the guy for me, and the thing is, it's like when I was really younger. There really were no like rookies for say the Sabres or the Leafs. They were established clubs at that point. I would have to say, and it's always weird for that when your idol is basically the same age as you are. Mm-hmm. But Wendell Clark was that for the Leafs, and he played a game that I just loved. A rough and tumble. I mean, the guy was 5'10", 5'11", 190 pounds. Took on all comers and was had an unbelievable wrist shot. Was converted defenseman into a forward. I mean, I think still in Toronto is idolized, and number 1 pick in the '85 draft. And if it wasn't for injuries, And again, you can never know, but based on the pace that he put in the first few years, and then he scored goals when the Leafs were good in 93 and 94. I mean, if he had not had those debilitating back injuries, I think he would have been a borderline Hall of Famer, but the injuries were there and you could never really project that on. But from the very beginning, I loved the way he played. He was a leader on that team. Fans loved him. They were heartbroken when he was traded in 94, and then they brought him back a couple years later. It was great, but it wasn't the same. But I mean, he's the guy for me.
It's funny you share that with you probably would never have known this, and I never really thought of this before either. But one of my best buddies growing up, who's our Minnesota Wild blogger, Dan Wallace, is he was number 17 growing up as a hockey player, and it's because his favorite player too is Wendell Clark.
There you go.
And even though he's a diehard Flyers fan, like completely Flyers all the way, Wendell Clark was his guy. He just liked the way he played.
There's something about just you see an athlete, you like the way he carries himself. Yeah. Maybe he's not. I don't know. Some people like the braggy, docious kind of athletes like Reggie Jackson. I go for the more humble guys, and I think Seaver was somewhere in between, and Wendell Clark definitely was somewhere in between. And yeah, you latch onto these guys, and it is amazing the lengths you go to follow them. I was telling my wife a story where pre-internet, you had to go to like Ticketron to get tickets, and I would just map out every fifth day, and I'd say, well, this is when Seaver's fourth day back then. Yeah, this is when Seaver's going to go, and I say, Dad, any of these games are fine to get tickets for. Like, not even thinking he might get an injury, and he never really had an injury until like 10, 15 years into his career. Like, it's funny.
The thing I like about with Tom Seaver, this is kind of funny, is that I had a baseball card game, and I have no idea what it was. It wasn't Stratomatic. It was just these little tiny cards.
And maybe. I
don't know what it was. What was that? What you said?
Pursuit Dependent.
That might be it, but it was each player had their own little card on it.
Yeah.
And this connected to players of that era, like that like of like with Tim McCarver, and as a Met, and Tom Seaver and all that, and that became like a huge fan of Seaver's back then too because of this game. It was just funny. It was before I was even really paying attention, and I of course remember him pitching against the Phillies a lot too. But yeah, that's really that's something.
Cool. Two short things here. One, the last time I was up in Toronto, that the game ops will play these little games, these little trivia things, or top 5 this, just as filler during the TV timeouts. Well, please don't insult my intelligence when they have the top 5 nicknames in Leaf history, and they go through them, and one of the top 5 is not Dave Tiger Williams.
Right.
He had the entertainer Eddie Shack. I think the number 1 was Doug Gilmour. His nickname was Killer. I mean, those are all fine and good. But how could you? I mean, he wasn't. Nobody called him Dave Williams. Everybody called him Dave Williams. It should have been one of the top 5.
So you know what that tells me? That the Leafs are trying to stray away from their fighting past, where like the Flyers do the opposite still and show every fight before a game. They go overboard on that.
I don't think it's that, Russ. I think whoever put the list together is somebody who probably was born in the 1990s and doesn't know about the history of the Leafs. And I think that job should go to somebody who's at least aware of the history. Now, the other thing, I was up until about 1:45 this morning watching the Astros and Yankees. And Carlos Correa, who's a great player, hits a home run in the I think it was the 11th inning. Now, I'll just say this: if we were playing or watching baseball 20 years ago, if Carlos Correa had done what he did when he hit the home run, which was walk down the first base line holding his hand to his ear, in the first inning of Game 3, Luis Severino would throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball up his rear end and at his eyes.
Dave Henderson did that as a Red Sox against the Mets. He did that for a couple teams. Like, guys have been doing it. I get it. I don't love it, but that's the way it is now, man.
Yeah. So in the post Jose Bautista bat flip era, that is allowed. Although I don't really see Yankees do that. They get on first base and they do their Brett Gardner bashing the bat on the top of the bat, and for some reason put their fingers like this.
Right.
I don't know, but they don't do that kind of celebration. I will be very interested in 3 games in Yankee Stadium, Rob. You know the Yankee Stadium crowd. They will make it living hell for the Astros every single year. There'll be things thrown at them. They'll insult Kate Upton. They will do anything to throw that team off.
Now, the things thrown at them, that has been going on for a long time, and I am not in favor of that. I don't know if Mike is either, but he just said it's going to happen, and he's right.
It's going to happen. I mean, it's not going to be Ducky Medwick in the 34 World Series where they're throwing glass bottles at him in the outfield and they take him out. But let's just say I'm sure some hot dog wrappers will be thrown from the outfield.
No, they will.
All right.
Oh, for sure. All right, let's get into this. I kind of had a catch-all show today for Thanksgiving. I got some fun little things. It's just I wrote a bunch of different notes on tiny links that I've noticed over the last couple of days. So I think that'll be kind of fun. Here we go. Ready? Hello, Hockey World. It's Monday, October 14th, 2019.
I'm Michael Agello, and the Houston Astros suck.
I'm Russ Cohen. Go Stros.
And I'm Eklund, and baseball's pointless. And you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. You can follow Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in the comings goings in the hockey world. And I wanted to start off with the couple games that I watched, just like bizarre random things. First of all, I just wanted to start off with the Patrick Marleau return to the Sharks, and it's kind of a thing to, because I was listening last night. I was working really late on something that I'm going to talk about later in the show. But I was up to about 3:00 in the morning, and I was working on this thing, and I was listening to XM Hockey, because that's what I do late at night. And it gets into that repeat mode where every hour it says the same thing back over and over again. It took me because I was working and I just had it on the background, it took me 3 times before I realized I've heard this 3 times now. But one of the things they were talking about was Patrick Marleau and how he had come back to the Sharks and, had this kind of crazy beginning. Like he really got, 2 goals and assists, great start to his return. Really emotional. Last night was, and Patrick Marleau is a tough one because he's not emotional. He's not an emotional guy. Mm-hmm. And he kind of has that stoic face, but yet he does, obviously he doesn't, I'm not saying he's not emotional. He's actually very emotional. He's super emotional, but he doesn't show emotion at all. One of those kind of people. So watching him on the bench last night, that when the Sharks fans were going crazy, it was really, it's really interesting. You actually did see almost like a smile, think about the times in life you've seen Patrick Marleau smile for a second. It's just not even.
When I interviewed him pre-cup, he was smiling.
Yeah, he's pretty hardcore though. He's pretty much even when he does something good happens on the ice, he's not one of these guys big smile and going over to the guy. He's very stoic when he skates over to somebody. So on XM last night, they're talking about, let's deal with the reality here. They would have signed Patrick Marleau if they really wanted him. They're only bringing him in because of injuries. And I'm thinking to myself, he didn't really suck last year. He wasn't so terrible for the Leafs that that they should be talking about him like they are talking about him. You know what I mean? It's it's one of those things they're acting like he was he's I don't know,
abject failure.
Yeah, and he wasn't. He left.
No, he wasn't that.
He left the Leafs because of salary cap issues.
No. Okay, let me. First of all, you're right about your about Marleau's personality. I was in many media scrums with him. He'll crack a little bit of a smile or smirk, but he's pretty straightforward and pretty serious. Yeah, especially with having to be that way with the Toronto media, because I think if you act sort of flippantly, you're probably going to be criticized more than anything.
Aside on that, Mike, real quick, not to interrupt you, but he was nervous around the San Jose media, so I was always wondering what he was going to be like again in the Toronto media. But
he handled himself very well, very professionally, and was respected in that room and by the media as well. But no, I think the thing with Marleau, and I have to sort of lay the blame at Mike Babcock for this. Patrick Marleau, his first year, they moved him to center when somebody got hurt. He played well. They moved him to the wing. They played him on the second line for most of the year. He was basically on the first line, or the most effective line in his first playoff against the Bruins. Last year, he started off playing with Matthews, then ended up getting moved down to the third line. But in the playoffs, if you look at the minutes breakdown, he played as much. I think in the third period of Game 7, he played as much as Austin Matthews did. Babcock Babcock overplayed him. He should have been a 13, 14-minute forward, being a guy who's 40 years old, and because Babcock trusted him, and that's something.
That is sort of the history of Patrick Marleau in a way, because he has, I think, been overplayed in situations a lot in his career. And by a situation you wouldn't expect. Like, I always thought Team Canada overemphasized him. Like, not that he's a great player, but but on Team Canada you're among other great players.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought he was sort of put up on a higher pedestal than Team Canada should have. Like when they would play him, nothing against him. You know what I mean, Rest
Yeah, no, I do know what you mean. Here was the thing. I brought up Marleau like a week ago on Sirius. I brought up him, Justin Williams, and can't remember who the other player was. Oh, it was Bufflin. And I said, Bufflin, I think, is done. I said, I think Justin Williams, if he doesn't come back in a couple of weeks, is done. And I said the same thing about Marleau. And I was just worried about him being able to catch right on, because that's hard to do. And I didn't think they were going to try that, and they did it. And so far it's worked. But from a personal standpoint, I picked him up in the summer for my fantasy team because I still thought he could score 15 goals, and I still think he could score 15 goals.
And that's what was bothering me last night. I mean, I was listening to I don't know who it was. It was Jonathan Davis or somebody like that on there on XM. But it was really bizarre to me how little respect Marleau was getting in this conversation, because they really were. And honestly, I know there was a weird situation, okay, because I know Marleau pretty well, and I know my wife knows his wife, so like there's a bunch of, so I know that he wasn't going anywhere but San Jose. I knew that. And I was shocked when he went to Toronto, because I know his wife loved it in San Jose. But I knew that the only place I knew he could still play, but the only place he could play in his mind would be San Jose. So that's why, this deal is so small. There really was no negotiation here. It was like a matter of like, okay, if you want to play, we know this is the only place you'll play. I mean, the Sharks know this as well. So this wasn't like, his $700,000 is a friggin' steal for Patrick Marleau. Let's just throw that out there. I mean, it's just, I mean, that's ridiculous, right? I mean, that's just off the charts ridiculous. So,
well, and this is the thing. It's clear that they didn't want to bring him back. Doug Wilson, he didn't say it publicly, but the assumption was all summer that that's the only place he would go. Yeah. That Mike Babcock was asked after he had signed with San Jose, whether there was any consideration of the Leafs bringing him back, because they traded him to Carolina. Carolina bought him out, and they could have re-signed him for $700,000, and Babcock would have probably loved it, but Marleau wanted to stay in California. His family had moved back there. That's where he wanted to go. And only when these injuries happened did they re-sign Marleau. Now it's a perfect fit. He's known in that, and on that team, he probably end up playing with Thornton eventually if he's not already. I mean, it's a good fit, and I think it will help them. And they needed the help because they started out 0-4 and they looked terrible. But now I think they've righted the ship a bit.
Yeah, totally.
He definitely helped them right the ship. But Eck, we also have to remember, even though you thought it was weird that he would play with the Leafs, there were other teams bidding on him. And there were.
No, there definitely were. And
he was willing to go to other teams besides the Leafs. They just had the best offer in the end.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I mean, I've heard that there were other offers from other places that might have been.
There were.
Yeah.
The Leafs put one more year on the table than other teams.
Right, they did. And that meant something to him, obviously. And and he ended up winning out on that one. When he gets bought out. Yeah. And he deserves. I mean, listen. I mean, he is a San Jose Shark legend. There's no twist, right? So and it's fun to see him and Thornton playing together again. That's true. And they're funny about it on the bench, and the whole thing was really kind of silly,
Just like Link Gates is another San Jose Sharks legend.
Right. Next big thing here. We often talk about the NWHL here, not too often, but once in a while, it's fun. And so yesterday I'm flipping around, trying to find something to watch because there's nothing but stupid football on. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be some hockey somewhere. Got to be hockey somewhere. And I know the Jets, I heard.
It helped out your team, so you better be nice about it.
Right, yeah. So what I found was this. I found this yesterday, which is the official Twitch stream of the NWHL.
Yeah,
which I thought was really cool. You can watch the NWHL games now on Twitch live. It's a lot of fun, and it was really just like it was highly entertaining. And great players, great. And the cool thing is also they have like a chat room here you can see that goes on as it's happening, which is fun. I thought if every hockey game should have a chat room going on next to it. As I was watching it, that was just hilarious.
We talked about this one day when you were off.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I brought it up when, again, there was that other rival league that's trying to take out the NWHL because the NWHL stinks and they cut everybody's salaries in half, even though they're the only ones paying anybody.
Right.
And actually, they just came out the other day and when they re-signed Dunkin' Donuts, but they also got a new owner who's actually local to Boston for the Boston team. Players are getting 50% of the ad revenue, media revenue. So that's a big deal. So they're at least trying, and the Twitch thing is big. And I remember we brought it up. And so I saw a number the other day. I think on one of the games they had about 8,000 viewers.
That's pretty awesome.
And I think it's going to grow. I mean, they've had as many as they've had 100,000 or more for like their all-star games and stuff. But I think this other league is going to have a very hard time because at the end of the day, we could spout out all these things like, well, they should all be one and this and that. And maybe you don't like Danny Ryland. And I've interviewed her a few times, and I think she's done a good job with the league, the best she could. Could she have done a better job? Sure, because I think she has rubbed some players the wrong way. But that's what all commissioners do. But at the end,
I did an interview recently with Hillary Knight that I'm going to be putting out. I talked to her for quite a while on the phone. It was a really nice interview. And
this league is surviving. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in women's hockey right now. So I thought that was
but the problem is that, and things can change because right now it's mid-October, but this boycott by the
pretty much over, Mike.
Right. I mean, nobody is crossing picket lines, or nobody is going over to the NWHL in hordes. But the NWHL is still existing, and their goal by this boycott was to kill the NWHL, and it's not happening. And this dream, I don't know whether the NHL is going to come in as the savior like the NBA did with the WNBA and I don't think that's happening.
I don't think that's happening.
One of the things I got from talking to Hillary Knight and some other people too is that there are actually owners out there who are trying to put that together. And it'll be.
They're not going to do a good job.
Hopefully, it'll be something that matters.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's sort of going in the wrong direction here, Eck, because you had a team in Buffalo, the Buttes, that had sort of loose sponsorship from the Pagulas, and they divested themselves from it. So, and if you're looking for a sponsor, you can't get much better than Kim Pagula, who's the co-owner of the Sabres and the Bills. A woman of great intelligence and wealth, and they divested themselves. So, what does that say for where things are going here?
I'll tell you the one thing, and I've had this argument with some very logical people and better business people than me, but I do understand sports. There always are going to be owners that want to have their own team, their own league, and say they can do it better, and that's why this other one's trying to do it. This other one is not paying anybody. They don't have a league. They don't have teams. They just have to
be careful, man. Yeah, that's the thing. We got to be careful because I, as a soccer dad, the women's soccer league, the ownership situation that destroyed that league was a sin. I mean, what happened there where the owner ended up suing, it was just a mess, and the whole thing fell apart because of one guy.
Yeah.
And that is just that destroys dreams, destroys all kinds of things. You really
it does. It does a lot of damage. But what I'm
really needs to step up, and that's honestly at the end of the day, the NHL
group. Just because you have Hillary Knight and a few players that are very well off, that can afford to not play for a year or two or forever because they've made money in the Olympics, supporting you doesn't mean you have enough for a league. And I noticed, and I kept telling Mike over the summer, players were going to trickle back over to the NWHL, and they did. And so I think that's always going to happen. I don't think they're going to have a rival league. They had one in Canada, and they never, ever paid, and they went under as a result. There was a chance to merge at one point. It didn't happen. And they went out of business. And
there's a lot of short-sightedness there, and it's because no one has enough faith to go and realize that there's a long tail to this thing. That's what has to happen. Someone has to have the faith and say, okay, we're going to lose money for 10, 15 years here, but we're going to make this. We're going to join up with all the growing. We're going to realize that 10 years from now versus 10 years ago, the amount of girls playing hockey in the U.S. is just enormously different. So 10 years from now, imagine what that's going to be. And that's where you go, because that's how soccer in the U.S. is making it. And people don't even realize that the amount of tickets that are sold through soccer clubs, are like half of them. And it's like, and every soccer club has, like every team my daughter's ever played on, you have to buy a certain amount of tickets to see union play, or whatever. And then one game a year, my daughter gets to run onto the field with the Philadelphia Union players, and it's just that's how this thing works, and it's amazing. It's really and that's how this can work, because girls hockey in this area, I'm very close to a big rink that has a lot of tournaments, and a hotel that's just like a mile down the road, and we often go to breakfast at this hotel, as a family, and I'm always amazed, and now I'm seeing like girls teams in there just for an entire weekend for a tournament, just this crazy, you never saw that before. It was just never. Right. So I was stepping forward back to the NHL for a second. Yep. There is one player right now that is absolutely, of all the players this weekend, he's a Russian. He shocked me with his play this weekend. I thought he was in the game I watched. I thought he was just dominant. And I'm like, and he's 26 years old. He's been around the NHL for a while. And that would be Vladislav Nemestnikov, who in that game against the Ottawa Tampa game, which the Ottawa Senators won, which was a fascinating game, of course, because you wouldn't think. I mean, here's the best team in the NHL and the worst team in the NHL by most people's standards. And Nemestnikov goes nuts in it and just looks like he dominates the ice. And then I'm thinking to myself, okay, he's a Russian, and Russians usually have a reason when they go nuts. I go back and I forgot that, hey, guess where he started? Right. Like his first from 2013 to 2018, he was a very much Tampa Bay Lightning, right? And it's fascinating, that this has always been the case. Russians, like, they get motivated. They get motivated by certain things.
Well, I think I'll tell you what's motivating them now. When the Rangers got him, I think there was hopes on both sides that it was going to work out. Yeah. But unfortunately, Nemestnikov's one of these guys that you can't really put in a box. He's not really a center. And so he ends up on the wing, but he can play center. So that nobody ever knows where to play him all the time. It's hard to find line mates for him. And the Rangers failed in what they were trying to do with him. So they showcased him early in the year. He had a couple good games, and they got rid of him because of salary cap issues. Yeah, he can play. He's always been able to play. But at the end of the day, he has never found that home where he has a line all the time. Yeah. In Ottawa, he could do whatever he wants. They don't fear him.
He's one of those guys who needs the puck, and he needs to carry the puck. You saw when he carries the puck up the ice, he does make things happen. He has that ability. And, I realize he's only, played 2 games this year with the Rangers, played 2 games now with the Sens, and has, 4 points in those 2 games for the Sens.
Well, remember this. He had scored, I believe, 20 goals with Tampa when he was part of the McDonough trade, right, Russ?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, 20 goals, 44 points that year.
Yeah, so and then
62 games.
And then his remaining time with the Rangers, he barely scored. So it wasn't a good situation for him. He was playing 4th line with the Rangers, which is not, with somebody talent basis and making $4 million, it made no sense.
Right.
I'm sure he's motivated to play against Tampa, but what I think he's more motivated for is the fact that, he's a UFA at the end of this year.
Yeah, sure.
He has an opportunity in Ottawa to get plenty of ice time. They're going to play him probably as a 2nd or 3rd line center and get offensive opportunities. And then more than likely, Ottawa at the deadline is going to trade him because they can get value back for him. And in managing their assets and getting rid of salary is part and parcel of what Pierre Dorian and Eugene Melnyk do. But he can set himself up for next July.
When you say that, Mike, and I do agree with you, it was really one of the most bizarre things about watching that game was the fact that Melnyk just loved Nemestnikov. Like, you could see, like, it was a funny thing. Like, Melnyk doesn't, his response to things, press box, you could tell that he was like in awe of the guy. Now, and that doesn't mean he's not going to trade him, like you say, but at the same point, maybe he doesn't, like maybe he says, okay, maybe this is one of the guys that we can build up. Maybe Nemestnikov said, what? I've been around and I don't want to go someplace where I'm going to play on the 4th line anymore. Like, I want to play here. And this could be a fit. This really,
but eventually he'll end up in that same place in Ottawa because, right now Ottawa's got 3 guys who I think will be dealt before the trade deadline. One is Craig Anderson. Another is an Artem Anisimov. And the third is Nemestnikov. They're gonna use them for this year. They're veteran guys. They're gonna play a lot of minutes. They don't want to expose their young kids early on, but at the end of the year, they're gonna want to get those kids into the league and playing. And those guys that are either close to being UFA or UFA at the end of the year are rentals, and they will deal them.
Well, they do have plenty of money. At some point, they do have to keep some players, so he could be a player they keep.
It just looks like it works. Like, like, and that's very early. Okay. And granted, and this is a big revenge game for Mestikov and all that stuff, and I was a little bit, if it, I was a little bit, I don't know, my whole enthusiasm was a little bit brought back by the fact, okay, yeah, he did play for Tampa, like, okay, so like, I want to see what he does when he's not playing against Tampa or the Rangers, like, that's what you want to see, like, at this point, because he's definitely going to be one of those guys. But it was fun to like see, like, this is what is great about the NHL sometimes, that like that the Ottawa Senators can beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 4-2 on a rogue Saturday. Like, that to me was something that was kind of fascinating.
And Vepsis in the chat, expresses a possibility that regarding Nemestikov is they trade him at the deadline and then they re-sign him in the summer if they like him. And that, we know that the Senators have to get at least to the cap floor. They have so many young players that it's going to be tough. They have they spent money, like $3.5 million on Ron Hainsey just to get to the cap floor and take on guys like Martin Gaborik and guys like Clark MacArthur. Their contracts are expiring at the end of this year, so they're going to have to occupy some cap space. So it's possible, but I think that they won't pass up the opportunity to trade their rentals.
Well, a couple of things about the Lightning along these lines, because I'm watching that because I really wanted to see what's going on with Lightning, because you expected them to come back, like come out of the gate sort of pissed off, and you're going to try to, and they really have come out really like, not that. And to the point where Cooper, who I think, Cooper's definitely one of my favorite coaches in the NHL, and he's one of those guys who is, just from a media point of view, is wonderful to deal with, but he's panicking a little bit with some of his line combinations. I mean, to see him already going to, now I know they killed the Maple Leafs, but
yeah,
see him going with Stamkos, Kucherov, and Braden Point together on a line is a little bit like
he's under a lot of pressure.
There's no question about it.
And it's ironic that you bring that up, Eck, because it's funny where John Cooper's attention is focused. In the pregame on Thursday, Babcock was asked about that very line, Kucherov being put between Stamkos and Point and Kucherov all on the same line. And, Babcock said, well, ton of talent. I don't know if there's enough puck to go around. And that was just sort of a flippant comment. After the game, that line had scored 11 points in the game. They won 7-2. And Cooper says, well, I guess they know how to share the puck.
Right.
Who cares what Mike Babcock says? How about focusing on the fact that your team was the best team in the league last year and you choked so bad against Columbus?
That's how he takes pressure off of his team.
Yeah, here's the thing with him, and this is what's cool about him too, is he literally
did that on purpose.
He says he does. He's very smart.
Of course he is.
Very calculated, and he also sort of represents. You're talking with Babcock and Cooper. You really are seeing like the two kings of their factions of coaching.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Babcock is the king of the old school. Cooper's the
he's the big grinding guys. Cooper's the smaller, fast guys.
King of the new school. So it's like there's a definite, and the old school and new school coaching right now there's a way bigger rivalry going on behind the scenes than people realize. Like there's a huge thing happening, and you're seeing it all over the place. And it's definitely these two really feel like they really are for their side of this. Like they really, Cooper thinks his way is better. Babcock thinks his way is better. There's no two ways about that. They will fight for that. And that was winning that game. I mean, and it was interesting to see because it's like it really shows you though when Tampa loses to Ottawa and beats Toronto in a weekend. You do have to look at coaching a little bit. Like you have to say, okay, what's going on here? Like how is that possible? Like how is, and you just have to also look at a team that is obviously bored of the regular season already in Tampa. Like Tampa is one of those teams that wants to go to the playoffs right now. Like they want to fix what happened last year immediately. And they have to get their act together and start playing hockey well. I mean, there are certain things that are weird about that team, though. Like Kevin Shattenkirk has 3 goals in 5 games for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, that's
not a shock because if you play him the right way, that's what's going to happen. And he's got a chip on his shoulder right now.
Right.
So, yeah, it's not shocking. But they have to get through the war of the 82-game season. That's going to be the biggest battle for them.
Victor Hedman is a -4, which is way worse than anybody else on the Tampa Bay Lightning. There's just strange things happening with the Lightning.
Yeah, but and we can move this to other teams too. We're talking about 5 or 6.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Right, and it's like, okay, right now, for example, the worst player, the worst defenseman on the Toronto Maple Leafs has been Morgan Rielly. He's not the worst defenseman. He's their best defenseman. But in the first 6 games, he has played terribly. One of the Shattenkirk goals on Thursday, he walked around Morgan Riley like he was standing still. So that, and so you can say,
but you're right. Here's about that. About that, it's really kind of interesting to me is that when you look at that Tampa defense, it's such an offensive defense. Morgan Riley is going to play against every good line in the NHL. Like he's going to be out there constantly. Babcock is going to put him against the best players all the time because he's one of the best defensive defensemen they have. And so his plus minus is going to take a beating for that. There's no question about it. Same thing is happening to a degree with Tampa with Hedman. There's just you're looking at offense, right?
Yeah. The funny thing is that the analytics aficionados are saying, well, Riley looks bad because he's paired with Cody Ceci. It's not Cody Ceci. It's Riley. Riley has not played well. And it's not because
I know he hasn't played well, and he hasn't. I mean, he's still, people forget he's still kind of young. Like, he's still sort of young for defenseman.
He's
like
25 years old.
No, but I mean, this is the start of the season. Like, there are ups and downs.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's not as young as I thought. I thought he was more like 24. Sorry about that. But
the point I'm making is that it's early in the season, and good players can have bad starts. And I think Riley is scoring points, but he's not playing defensively the way he did last year. And I don't think it has anything to do with his defensive partner being Cody Ceci instead of Ron Hainsey, because Ron Hainsey was limited and Cody Ceci has played okay. But that, if you extrapolate that to other situations like the Edmonton Oilers being 5-0. Talk about full goal.
No, but again, I'll tell you the reason for both of these things. Mm-hmm. With the Leafs,
there, Mike. Thanks.
The Babcock message is getting old and muddled. With the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Cooper message is getting old and muddled. That's why Stamkos had to say something the other day, and it's all bright and shiny new right now in Edmonton, and that message is getting through. That's what it is.
Of course. And Edmonton, there's things that are very wrong. I mean, I'm not going to go anymore. I've doted enough on the Oilers, but there's things that are definitely wrong there. They're getting all their goals from very few people. That's a problem. They've come from behind in every single game they played. That's a problem. They're not starting well. They're getting good goaltending at key times though, and that's what Mike Smith can do for you. Mike Smith is a really good momentum goalie. He is not a great goalie, but he's a good momentum goalie, and he will make saves when you need them, big times. And that's what he's doing right now. And that's why Tippett trusts him. Bottom line is he trusts him because he knows that'll happen. I mean, the James thing was kind of predictable, not to the level, but he really was buried on the fourth line often and third line often in Calgary and played on the power play. I heard the numbers ridiculously rarely for Calgary Flames, I mean, that trade, when you think about James Neal just 2 years ago, was a really good player in the NHL, like on a team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals. And Milan Lucic has been a good player, since the turn of the century or whatever.
He is still James Neal, and in the Ranger game, he got completely taken out of his game by Brendan Lemieux. And so, and so that's why
he's not playing in this division. If he was playing in this division, that would be a thing. But he's playing in the Pacific, where that's not good.
They're going to start doing it to him now. Now that you got to remember, if you go look at one or two of those goals with the Devil, they let him completely alone in front of the net to deflect in a puck like it was practice. Yeah. Like, that's how bad the Devils are right now. They played a 4-man box and nobody played around the net. And so some of his plays have been great, and McDavid has helped that. But what I'm saying is other teams are going to start to get under his skin now. You watch.
The thing that I was impressed by was that they kept the Rangers to 21 shots in that game or something like that?
And that was something I brought up last night. So it's clear Dave Tippett is going to ask the Edmonton Oilers to play perfect hockey. And of the two teams right now, if you ask them to play perfect hockey, right now the Oilers are better set up to do that than the Rangers, because the Rangers aren't strong down the middle, and there's a couple of other reasons. So I still don't know if the Oilers can do that all year, and I don't think Dave Tippett should be asking that of them all year. I think at some point he's going to have to change that. But in that game, they did it exactly right. But I will tell you, it was like 1-1 middle of the second period, I think, in that game.
Yeah, I almost get the feeling that Daryl Cates slipped some money into the NHL rule makers.
Dude, you can't have it both ways. I wrote about this. You can't have it both ways.
No, I know, but let me just read it out. I mean, okay, they're 5-0. Canucks.
Yep.
Kings.
Yep.
Islanders.
Yep.
Devils, Rangers. There's a cavalcade of the top echelon of the NHL. Are you?
But all of those teams, except for maybe the Kings, you guys picked to finish ahead of them. So, like, let's step back and you know, like, I mean, like, you can sit back and say they have a terrible schedule, but you all picked them to finish below all those teams they're beating. So,
I picked them to finish 6th in the Pacific, and I can continue to say that they're going to finish 6th in the Pacific. This is a you know, the Buffalo Sabres won 10 games in a row, and then we're the worst team in the NHL in the second half.
The funny thing is, Mike, their next 5 games are pretty easy too. Their first their 10 games are, and if you go like, you know, 8-2 in your first 10 games in the NHL, you're a playoff threat. You know, there's no two ways about it. You can't get around it. It's just, that's the way it's been. You know, I would like to find how many teams have gone 5-0 and not made the playoffs in the NHL in the last several years. I mean, there's not many. I mean,
yeah, it's such an early thing. The way the league is now, I'm not putting any stock into any of that.
I've got something that I want to show you guys, because this is BALLS, in my opinion. This play by, this is why Marc-Andre Fleury is crazy. Ready? So watch this play here. I'm going to show you here.
Oh, I saw this play. I know what you're talking about.
This is like, you know, this goaltending, you know, here comes the puck in, you know, yeah, I'll just do this. And then watch this.
Yeah.
Tell me that a goalie should ever do that.
No.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like they should never do that.
I could imagine most goalies would like trip and fall backwards.
That'll get you benched, kids, if you try that on your – I mean, if you try that, they'll get you benched. I mean –
if you do that in rec hockey, like in a league rather with, you know, like a 10, 12-year-old, forget it. You're done.
Oh, yeah, no, you're going to get benched immediately. And it's funny because I just saw something like this happen recently in soccer where, you know, there's a play in soccer, one of the many plays in soccer that I think makes soccer terrible. There's a play in soccer where, you know, a ball comes to the goal, the keeper, and the ball's on the ground until a player runs up to them and they'll pick it up, you know, and it's like one of these things. Okay. And it's just all time because it has a stupid clock system and all that stuff. But so I saw a player, a goalie in high school, instead of just picking it up, try to like juggle it up with their feet to their hands when someone was coming in on them. This is kind of a similar play to this. And I just was like, whoa. And, you know, that player did it and did it successfully, but they were benched immediately, which is like how it should be in that situation. Next little quick thing
we should bring up one thing though about Fleury. So, and we talked about this. I don't remember if you were on the show or not, how Malcolm Subban wasn't doing very well. So now he gets sent down. Oscar Dance gets brought up, and Oscar Dance is having a horrible start to his season. Yeah. But Marc-Andre Fleury is going to play every game. Right now he's played 6 games. I mean, he's 34 years old. At some point, this organization is going to overplay him, and it's going to happen. I don't know what year. And I feel bad because I love Marc-Andre Fleury. But, again, how much can this guy take? How many of these games can he take? I mean, he's probably going to be on pace for like 68, 70 games if they go this route.
Oh, I know. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Okay, so along these lines of Marc-Andre Fleury, I wanted to talk about what I'm going to be doing this afternoon and then show you guys the lines for this. Because when we do this, so I've been doing this. This has been like 3 years in the making, that I wanted to have the greatest players of all time play against each other in a tournament. So I've been working on it forever. I worked with EA NHL. They were really great with me. They gave me some special things that I can do to make these players look more realistic and all that stuff. And I am really, really fired up about what I'm going to do this afternoon, which is going to launch this by starting this tournament. And it's like a tournament of champions. And what it is these are the greatest teams of all time as picked by our friends over at fungosports.com. And Steve Chertoff, who's one of my best friends, he has a place down the shore right across from me. Great, like, hockey historian guy. He's helped pick these things, and as will some of the bloggers and stuff like that. And we are putting together. So I built the Montreal Canadiens team, which has close to, I counted 97 Stanley Cups on this team. That's like one of the most ridiculous things ever. Like, here's a team that has 97 Stanley Cups, right? It's nuts. And so I
heard Henri Richard. I think that's like 15 right off the bat.
Right. It's crazy. So, and how many number 4s, like, I've been trying to figure out it's so hard with Montreal to build these players and make them look good and make them the size they are. And the only rule I have about it that's kind of funky is that, well, the 2 rules is that a player played in the city. So the city counts, where it is. So the Winnipeg Jets from before are still going to be Winnipeg. It depends where you played in the city. But the other thing that I've done with this that I think is kind of cool is that you have to have one player at least that played in the 2000s. Now that's on that team, and that's not hard for most teams. But for the Montreal Canadiens, you actually have to enforce that rule, which is pretty funny. Like, you had to come up with
So you put Francis Bouillon on the team, right?
No, so he picked
Late Rasico.
he picked this team, and I thought it was probably the way to go because you can't touch the forwards on this team. Okay, like you got his first line is Beliveau, Rocket Richard, and Howie Moran. Second line is Schutt, Lemaire, and Lafleur. Third line is Dickie Moore, Henri Richard, and Geoffrion. And fourth line is like really old guys in Ariel Joliet, Nuzi Lalonde, and Yvon Cournoyer.
Okay, I would make one suggestion here, though.
Go ahead.
Richard should be on the fourth line. Cournoyer, I don't believe ever played the fourth line. He was too fast, and I don't think he was a fourth liner. Even when he was older against the Rangers, I think he was a third liner.
Okay, well, there's no real harm in being the fourth
I know.
liner.
One of these he was one of the fastest guys in hockey. I don't know, on the fourth line? Okay.
He actually has been put on the second power play unit, which is kind of cool.
No, that's good.
Because I had readers submit their power play and penalty killing units, and our Habs fan 1198 did his, which is kind of cool. So defensively, Larry Robinson, Serge Savard is the top pairing. Doug Harvey, Silvio Mantha is the second pairing. And the third pairing is Guy Lapointe and PK Subban. Now, that's where, of course, you have to have your guy in the 2000s. Right. If you're going to pick somebody, that's pretty much the guy. You have to go with the defenseman. You can't take any of the forwards away because you're already taking away guys like Carbonneau and Gainey and forwards that are just like, that should be on this team, right?
And the goalies are Plante and Roy.
Goalies are Plante and Dryden. And I think
that's crap. Oh my god.
Oh, that's tough.
That is a load of crap.
Why? Because
Patrick Roy is arguably the best goaltender in the history of the league.
No, but remember something about this, okay?
Let me finish.
Go ahead.
Patrick Roy is one of the best goaltenders in the history of the league, and Ken Dryden played behind a brick wall of a defense that you named three defensemen, Savard, Robinson, and Lapointe. He was an above average goaltender. He was not a superstar.
He was close to a superstar, Mike. He was. I watched.
He was not.
Stanley Cups in 8 years, Mike.
Patrick Roy.
He's not Patrick Roy, but he was close to a superstar.
Just to say this, he wrote a better book about hockey than he was a hockey player.
No, but I will tell you this, Mike. Here's the thing about Dryden, and I saw him playing from like the 70s on until I didn't see his whole career.
Yeah.
But as one of the bigger goalies, he was one of the only successful bigger goalies. Yeah. Most of the bigger goalies stunk. Horrible.
That's true.
Had Team Canada lost the Summit Series in '72, the guy who would have been burned in effigy would have been Ken Dryden because he played terribly.
All right. I mean, this is they've got 4 incredible goals.
Yeah, they do. They do.
But at the end of the day, 6 Vezinas, 6 Stanley Cups, 6. Dryden is it's just kind of. Patrick Roy was, had 2 Stanley Cups 2 Stanley Cups.
Yeah,
right?
in his rookie year, he won 1.
Yeah.
So did Dryden. Both did, right? So, at the end of the day, to me, that's and Patrick Roy will, he'll definitely be on the
Colorado. The last one for which they still haven't won 1.
Right. Thank Mario Tremblay for that.
Yeah. So there's to me, the choice between who's going to start, Plante or Dryden, is goes back and forth as well. But
there should not be any question. It's Jacques Plante. There really should not be any question.
Yeah.
He was good, but he wasn't. Was looking at it.
He was good.
He was amazing. He's historical. He invented all this stuff. But his career save percentage was .913.
You can't go by save percentage in those days, Zach. You can't do it.
All right. This is why I'm all for
look at how many games he played.
I know, no question about it, obviously.
Even as an older goalie for the Rangers, he still had a mystique about him that made him Jacques Plante. He's an all-timer.
Great. You could go a number of directions with the Canadians. You can go with the Chicoutimi Cucumber, Georges Vezina. You could go with Hainsworth.
Yeah, there's times.
Berkeley, Rogie Vachon. But the top 3. The top 2, there's no disputing. It's Plante and it's Roy. But okay, whatever.
Well, this is Steve's pick, and I'm going with it. I thought it was, it's a tough one, and I agree. But Dryden it's hard to ignore Ken Dryden, in the history of the Montreal Canadiens.
I was going to say that when Mike Palmateer is chosen for the Leafs, then don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Mike Palmateer, but he wasn't one of the 2 best goaltenders in Leaf history. When it comes to me choosing the Leafs roster, I will not factor in that.
Yeah, no, and I look forward to that. So
wait, I want to point this out to you. So
go ahead.
In 1962, Jacques Plante played 70 games. How many games did the Montreal Canadiens play that year?
70.
70.
Yeah, no, that was the era. No question about it. And it's fun because in EA, in NHL 2000, they have you can play Plante without a mask. It's pretty crazy. So
which is great. I love that.
So that kind of thing. So so today, you'll have Plante, you have Plante and Dryden in the game. I was, leaning towards Dryden, but if you guys want to throw Plante in there and you guys both think Plante should play over Dryden, I'll go with you guys. Because I
you can make a mistake and not do it. It's fine by me.
So they're going to play against the Vegas Golden Knights, which is the 31st ranked team all time. Of course, they've only been in existence for 3 years. And the great thing about this, remember there are 31 teams, so this is second versus 31. And the only way to make this tournament wise is I had to give the first seed a bye, right? So to have it, so I could go to 16 games in the second round. And so the first seed overall is picked by all of you guys out there was the Edmonton Oilers, which actually finished ahead, the all-time Edmonton Oilers ahead of the all-time Montreal Canadiens based on your votes. I wouldn't agree with that, but it's kind of hard to say, that all-time Edmonton Oilers team is pretty crazy. So, but they will play against a line of the Vegas Knights, which of course is line 1, Pacioretty, Stastny, Stone. Line 2, Marchessault, Carlson, Riley Smith. Line 3 is James Neal comes back to them. Cody Eakin and Dave Perron comes back to them. And line 4 would be Cody Glass, Eric Haller returns, and Alex Tuck. Defensively will be Schmidt, Theodore, McNabb, Engelin, Merrill, and Colin Miller will return. And of course it'll be Marc-Andre Fleury, who is the only hope they have in this game. But it'll be fun to watch like the Flying Frenchmen and how fast they are. I mean, I played through a couple of these games just to see how it would look and how, it would be ridiculous. And, they're the Canadians are a great team. But Marc-Andre Fleury has kept the Knights in some of the games that I've simulated, which has been interesting. Not forever, but for a little while at least. And it's been kind of fun. So that'll be this afternoon. I'll be doing it on Twitch, and I'll put a link up, and you'll be able to watch it. And at some point, I'd love to have you guys, Mike and Russ, or whoever wants to join me in commentating on this as this goes on live. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Just one note before we go. Russ had to drop off. The Maple Leafs sent down Rasmus Sandin, their 2018 first-round pick. It's funny because I answered a question in my Q&A yesterday about Sandin and about how he was playing. He was playing pretty well. Right. There's no doubt in my mind he's one of the top 6 Leaf defensemen right now, but he's 19 years old. He's playing about 12 minutes a game. He's not playing any power play or penalty kill. He didn't look great on a couple of goals against Detroit on Saturday, but I think the thing is they know that this kid is really good. They don't want to burn the first year of his entry-level contract. He's played 6 games. If he plays 4 more, then they burn the first year of his ELC. And with the Leafs being a team that is going to have to be counting dollars the next couple of years, they want him on his entry-level contract for as long as possible. So they call up Kevin Gravel and Travis Dermott, who has been off since May, since off-season shoulder surgery, is skating around in he was skating around in a non-contact jersey. Now he's skating around in a contact jersey. So he may be a week or so away. So that's probably the reason why they sent him down. Makes some sense.
A couple more quick little fun stats from the weekend. This is definitely an out there stat, but it is interesting and fascinating. A primary assist on game-winning goals, NHL history. Who has the most primary assists on game-winning goals? And this is it's Gretzky to start with. He's 40 ahead of anybody else at 168. Who do you think, Mike? After that. And in the chat room, feel free to jump in if you want to guess on the primary assists in NHL history.
Brian Trottier.
That's a good guess. No, he's I think when I did this, he was 7th.
Because he always assisted on Bossy's goal.
Definitely in the top 10. Bossy Trottier is kind of like a forgotten thing that really just doesn't get enough credit. That's something that was so good for a while there. People just have no idea. It's not a defenseman, by the way.
What's that?
It's not a defenseman. Someone asked in the chat room. It's a defenseman.
Peter Stastny.
Nope. We got it. Brad got it in the chat room. He may have checked. He may have seen it somewhere, but I'm going to give it to him now. But second would be Ron Francis, which is, a good one. People forget how good Ron Francis was and how he played, how when he played for Pittsburgh and, he picked up a lot of these.
And Harvard.
Yep. Third, and Harvard, yeah, third. Third would be Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe. And fourth, as of this weekend, is Joe Thornton. Nate. It's kind of interesting. Thornton he's played a while, obviously, but man, oh man, that's something else. And Joe Thornton he can still pass. Just watching him play this weekend, he still has just an incredible vision for passing. Just one of these things. He slows the game around like crazy. And then finally, I was told I should talk about this, and I think this is definitely an interesting one. Is the Penguins scoring all these goals without the big guys getting points is really funny to me. You can see it. They don't have. They've scored 14 goals through 100 minutes now, playing without Bukestad, Galchenyuk, Malkin. And that's something. Obviously, Malkin and Galchenyuk are big guys, but Crosby's not even scoring goals. It's it's really amazing. You watch the goals, if you saw the goals they scored yesterday, I think when they put up 7, it was what you're watching the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguin. It's just crazy.
Teddy Bluger is scoring, and
yeah, and Getzel's coming up big, which is good because he usually doesn't come up big. But right off the bat, but
they're also playing against the defenseless Winnipeg Jets.
No question about that. But at the same time, just slowly but surely, Patrick Laine is off to a hell of a start. One of these things that who knows what that's going to mean. And I have to address also a rumor that I put up on the weekend, which is the Islanders and Patrick Laine and talking to some sources on the island, including one of our buddies that used to be podcaster with us. Who has some sources up there. The Islanders and Patrick Laine are definitely a thing, and the Islanders believe they can get him. They believe that the Laine relationship with Winnipeg is very, very tenuous at best. Obviously, the signing, it took a long time to get him signed. It's a very short deal. But the question is, what do you have to give up? And from all indications, it's Dobson that the Jets want. And they
don't want to take. Don't get me wrong. Nick Leddy is a very good defenseman, and I think that you'd mentioned it during the summer. Yeah. But the problem is that the Jets can't afford to take Nick Leddy back. They want somebody on an entry level contract who's a really good young defenseman like Dobson. And if the Islanders are not willing to pay that price, then I think Kevin Cheveldayoff will say, "Yeah, all right."
It's not ridiculous at all. It's not a ridiculous price at all. And you're talking about the second overall pick. You're talking about a guy who could win some Maurice Richard trophies in his lifetime. You're talking about,
and it started all at great guns this year. Earlier this week, he was tied with McDavid for the NHL scoring lead. So that gives, if they're truly shopping him, that gives Cheveldayoff a lot more leverage to exact a return. Now, Pierre LeBrun just reported, and this is going to be, talk about. I think that the Arizona Coyotes should definitely invest in a witch doctor to take whatever spell is off of it, because now Nicholas Yarmulson will miss 3 months with a cracked fibula. And, this is a team that, they're defensively and goaltending, they keep getting injured. If it's not Ranta, it's Kemper. If it's not Ekman Larson, now it's Yarmulson. They lose these key players. They lost Schmaltz last year. They lost Dvorak. They keep getting injuries, and they keep staying in the race. And I think Tocchet, I know Russ said on the weekend he thinks Tocchet should be a candidate for the Jack Adams if they stay in the race.
Yeah.
They just keep getting injured. I don't know what it is.
There were people last year that thought that about Tocchet. For considering what he did, he really, didn't make the playoffs, but man, keeps that team competitive and gets them rebounds. Gets them back in the race after they were so far out of it, early on. Yeah, Tocchet's done an amazing job there. Tocchet. It's funny, 2 former line mates, Tocchet and Brindamore, are both doing incredible jobs in their situations that they're in right now. I think Tocchet definitely deserves I mean, there's another guy who got hurt too. There's another defenseman that got hurt for them yesterday. I'm trying to remember who. I was looking and trying to look it up as we were talking here, but I thought I heard somebody else got hurt last night in the game.
I think that was Yarmulson.
Okay,
I don't know if anybody else got hurt, but that's enough. Let's just say that because
he's a huge player. He's a really important player, and there's no question about that. The other thing that's really strange about this year, and this is what I'll leave on, is the variance in games played by teams. Like we're really more so than ever before. It feels like there's so many. It's all over the place. I mean, really, just like so many teams this year with obviously for the Hawks and Flyers who started over in Europe, they're still at like 3 games, but there's other teams that what are the Leafs at now? 8?
No, they're at 6. 3, 2, and 1.
Okay, yeah. There are some teams at 7. It's just, I mean, obviously that's gonna all balance out. But the Hawks are a team that I really was high on, and they were still winless at this point. And I know you guys weren't as high on them as for sure, but I still think it's hard. It's so hard to get going when you're in a situation where you're playing so few games. I mean, they're 0-2-1 at this point. And that's only 3 games played. In the Wild, who didn't go to Europe, only played 4 games. There's some very strange things that are happening.
Yeah, it's very, very imbalanced. I don't know what's going on. Just one last thing here. Jimmy Devellano, former Wings general manager, is going into the hospital today to undergo brain surgery.
Oh, man.
So I wanted to give our best thoughts to him. I bumped into him a number of times at Marley's games and Leaf games. Really nice gentleman who I've just talked to off and on just to say hello, but sort of a legend in hockey circles. So we wish him the best.
Super classy guy for sure. That really, really hope for the best with him there. There's no two ways about it. All right. So we have some games. I think there are some games this afternoon at 1:00.
I know there's an afternoon game here in Buffalo, Dallas, and the Sabres.
Yeah, and okay, is that the only one today in the afternoon?
I'll look, but that's the only one that popped up in my head here. But
I know so the Wild and the Sens are playing. The Devils and Panthers are playing.
Ducks Bruins at 1.
Blues Islanders at 1. This is a whole full slate of games at 1 today.
That's smart. It's smart.
Yeah, it's Columbus Day down here. Thanksgiving up there. Although Columbus Day is not a holiday that our kids have off.
Really?
It's not Columbus Day up there. I don't know if it's like a politically correct thing or something. But
it's probably because that mean European came to colonize us. The native.
Yeah.
So how do we honor him?
Maybe because we don't have anything to start. And then there's a really good one on slate tonight, and it's basically you have 1, 3, 5, and 8. I mean, you can't beat this if you're a hockey fan. You got 4 games plus the battle of the all-time Canadians versus the all-time Vegas Golden Knights sometime this afternoon, probably around 3. But yeah, you've got you can watch. 4 quality games. You start with what would be the best game at 1:00? Maybe the Blues and Islanders. I would say maybe Stars Sabres. No, Blues and Islanders. Then you go to Stars and Sabres.
Then you go to Sabres.
Yeah, and then you go to the Avalanche and Caps. That's a really strong game. Obviously, potential Stanley Cup match for some people they've put there. And you end up with the Oilers and Blackhawks, which is always an interesting game. Let's remember the Oilers and Blackhawks have a history of playing some fascinating games, high scoring, crazy games. This is the team that Sam Gagner got 8 points against that one time or whatever it was, something crazy.
Yeah,
against the Blackhawks when he was an Oiler. The Blackhawks and Oilers always play bizarre games, and this is a good spot for the Blackhawks maybe to get out of this thing. The Oilers are due to fall at some point. The Blackhawks are at home. I think this is their home opener, maybe even. So anyway, I think this might be their home opener. Anyway, there you have it. Remember, guys, we're here all afternoon, and check back on Hockey Buzz. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.